Okay, welcome to Designer Market Update. Today is Thursday, February 6, 2025. Price of Bitcoin trading at about $96,000, roughly $200 a coin. The network hash rate is still in the low 800 range, and hash prices, as measured in price or dollars per petahash, are still in the high 50s. Now, when you convert that, however, to dollars or cents per terahash, we're really in a roughly 7 cent per terahash range. The reason why I say that is because in an interview that was aired about 2 months ago, if I'm not mistaken, wherein the Bitfarms CEO, Mr. Ben Gagnon, was interviewed, he speculated and articulated, and I'm paraphrasing here a bit, that during this bull market cycle, the potential exists for hash prices to reach potentially upwards of, say, like 15 cents a terahash, maybe even as high as 20 cents a terahash. Fact check me. I'll see if I can link to that interview in the description to today's broadcast so you can check it out yourself. Fast forward to about a day or so ago, and Ben was once again interviewed, and although the topic didn't necessarily turn to specific potential price guesses, right, as it relates to hash prices, the conversation did turn to the topic of, do we think we're going to see another cycle with Bitcoin as we have in the past? And I'm paraphrasing here a bit again, but from Ben's perspective, and Ben does have a very good perspective, he's been in the business quite a while, the history may not necessarily repeat itself, but it kind of rhymes, right? That what we may experience now will be somewhat familiar to what we've seen in the past. The reason I say all of this is because, Ben commented, and by the way, I'll link to that broadcast as well, to that interview in the description of today's broadcast, so you can check it out yourself. But, Ben ended this interview, right, the one that was aired about a day ago or so ago, by saying in so many words that the role of a publicly traded Bitcoin mining company can no longer be to, approximate the price of Bitcoin or to provide an investor with exposure to Bitcoin pricing, but it really has to be a vehicle that will outperform, Bitcoin itself. So that's a very profound, I think, standard to set, right? To say, hey, shares of Bitfarms, basically, as well as that of other publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies, have to outperform the price of Bitcoin. Otherwise, and I'm paraphrasing Ben here, you're sort of better off just buying a Bitcoin ETF. So that presents, I think, everybody who has an interest, not just in Bitfarms, but in the wider publicly traded Bitcoin mining ecosystem, with a very, very, I think, consequential decision that needs to be made. And that decision is, A, do you believe that the price of Bitcoin is going to rise dramatically in 2025? I don't know that there's universal consensus regarding this, because I'm reading comments that were made to that interview which aired yesterday and to the one that aired about 2 months ago or so. And, again, people seem to be a little bit skeptical as to whether or not there's even going to be more of a Bitcoin price rally. Some feel as if though we may have topped out already. Now, I've shared in the past that I don't know that I really believe that. I do think that if the past is to rhyme with the present, we may be more likely to see a sort of a blow-off top, if you want to call it that, in the price of Bitcoin towards the end of this year. Now, if that's going to be true, and let's assume for the sake of our conversation here that Bitcoin will double to, say, roughly $200,000 a coin, to keep the math easy, let's just say then year to date, or rather for full year 2025, Bitcoin will be up 100%. That basically means that for one to feel compelled to be involved with a publicly traded Bitcoin mining company, you would want to see your return be more than 100%. I'm laughing because, outside of the world of Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining stocks, talk of a bare minimum 100% return is kind of like ridiculous. You know what I mean? Hey, if you get a 7% return in a single year, that's phenomenal. Here we are talking about 100+% returns in a single year. Be that as it may, is the vehicle that's gonna double your money essentially a Bitcoin ETF? Again, assuming you believe the price of Bitcoin will double. Okay, everything's predicated on that premise, right? If you believe Bitcoin gets to 200,000, are you better off buying shares of an ETF that tracks the price of Bitcoin? Are you better off buying shares of Bitfarms or of Mara or of RIOT or of CleanSpark or Hut 8 or any of the other publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies? Are those companies going to get you past 100%? Hell, will they even get you to 100%, right? And that's really, that's a really, really tricky thing to answer, isn't it? Now, Ben, to his credit, is talking already about, hey, we want to position Bitfarms to have a lot of HPC AI infrastructure in place, or right, so that when the inevitable crypto winter arrives, Bitfarms doesn't just kind of roll over with, the price of Bitcoin. But that's often in the future, isn't it? Right? That's, so yeah, there's preparatory work taking place now, which will ideally, pay off in 2026, 2027. But the question for those of us, and there are many of us, right, who are invested in Bitfarms, in CleanSpark, in Mara, in RIOT, in Hut, in any number of different publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies, the question here at the very relatively beginning part of 2025 is, are these the right vehicles? Now, I did take a look, and I will see if I can replicate this on the screen. I may not be able to. Basically, I took a look just at some of the top names, including Bitfarms. Bitcoin year to date is up just under 3% year to date. Mara down just about 1%. RIOT up over 11%. CleanSpark up over 11%. Bitfarms down just shy of 6%. Now, that's not a representative sample of every publicly traded Bitcoin mining company, but it's a fair representation of some of the bellwethers that are out there, right? So far, RIOT is outperforming the price of Bitcoin. CleanSpark is outperforming the price of Bitcoin. Mara Holdings is not, and Bitfarms, as of yet, is not. So it's a very I think consequential decision that we all need to make. If we believe the price of Bitcoin, which is right now at around $96,200 some odd dollars, let's assume that gets up to $200,000 in 2025. Let's, to keep the math easy, assume, hey, it'll be a full year 100% return. Can we anticipate that maybe a RIOT or a CleanSpark or even a Bitfarms can produce 110%, 130%, 150%, and maybe, just maybe, 200+%? So, I don't have an answer, right, insofar as telling you, hey, this is what I think you should do right this moment. I do, however, believe that Bitfarms is unusually positioned to generate really intriguing returns this year. And the reason why I think there's a compelling argument for that, in the interview that aired yesterday, Ben mentioned that he has been buying shares of the company in the open market, not just the stuff you get, as option packages, the right compensation from the board, stuff like that. He's been taking like actual cash, so to speak, going into the market and buying shares of Bitfarms. A skeptic might say, yeah, you know what, you got to do that because otherwise whatever shred of hope that may still exist amongst, Bitfarms shareholders will evaporate, right? You got to somehow make a statement. So you got to, hey, you got to suck it up, go into the market, start buying shares. But, I don't believe that's really what's compelling these purchases. It's hard. It's really, really hard to appreciate, even for me, just how changed of a company Bitfarms is. Now, I'm laughing a little bit because there's someone in the comments who I think fairly points out that there can be a lot of hypotheticals. I love that phraseology because I, for better or for worse, am known sometimes for delving into the realm of hypotheticals, right? Hey, Ben tells us, you know what, hosting will produce a better return on invested capital. Okay, great. That's, this isn't me saying it. It's kind of like the sentiment in the comments. It's like, hey man, don't tell me about it anymore. Show me. Show me the hosting contracts. Show me the hosting partners. Show me, a lot of this energy being utilized to mine Bitcoin. Show me that we're going to do a profit share that generates between 20% to 50%, as you articulate, is kind of the going rate for some of these deals. Show me that we can do this, and then I will believe. And I think that's fair. I do think that's fair. It can't just be, let me articulate the promise of this company. Let me actually lead you to that promised land, right? I mean, not to get too theological sounding here, right? Don't just share the vision of where we're going. Lead me there. Show me that we're making progress. And to Ben's credit, and again, I hate this because it feels like we put so much weight on this one man's shoulders. I mean, Bitfarms is an entire team, right? It's not just one guy, carrying the weight of this entire company on his shoulders. I mean, it's an entire team of highly talented, highly skilled individuals who each do their part. And in so doing, the collective company does well, right? Or at least that is the goal, right? Everybody's rowing in the same direction. But is it going to be enough to move the stock price in a way that exceeds the performance of Bitcoin itself? Because if the answer is no, if Bitcoin returns 100% and Bitfarms only returns 80%, then you would have been better off simply buying Bitcoin itself or investing in an ETF, right? That tracks the price of Bitcoin. So we're really at an inflection point. I like what I'm seeing insofar as the direction Bitfarms is going. And I've said this before, but specific to the stock price though, right? If this is the year where Bitcoin is going to be the driver, the catalyst, the thing that really drives revenue and presumably drives cash flow and presumably drives earnings to the extent any earnings will be found, right? Then clearly the focus has to be on Bitcoin mining. Yes, you need to do preparatory work so that in 2026, 2027 and beyond, you have an energy portfolio that is well optimized to take advantage of HPC AI opportunities. No doubt about that. But I think it's these conflicting messages, or what's perceived as conflicting messages and what's perceived as, hey, are we putting an emphasis on HPC AI? Are we putting any emphasis on Bitcoin? What's going on with the T21 miners? Which, by the way, Ben did address that in the interview that aired yesterday. And, at the end of the day, yeah, look, I mean, if you have a batch of miners that you get sent by one of the most reputable high-performing Bitcoin mining manufacturing companies on planet Earth, I mean, it's like, come on, I instinctively hear echoes of some of the challenges that Stronghold had with regard to, a $70+ million miner purchase that was put in, which was then delayed. And suddenly, it's like, what's going on? And so I think, even though I wasn't involved directly with Stronghold at the time, I still get that sense of like, oh my gosh, this thing with miners. And again, to Ben's credit, he's pointing out, look, I don't want to go into the market and be buying more Bitcoin mining machines until we have the opportunity to truly resolve what's going on with the T21s and the underperformance, getting that all straightened out, right? And getting ourselves to a place where, yes, we can hit that 18 exahash milestone by mid-year 2025. And then, yes, by year end, hopefully, right, or even sooner, get up to the 21 exahash, right? Really have that full deployment of Bitcoin mining machines and continue to evolve and develop not just the synthetic HODL, but these like derivative trading strategies. I think there's like about 10 of them, right, that have really been honed in that are, it sounds like, algorithmically able to trade in the market, right, as it relates to, options, Bitcoin. Again, there's a lot of potential profit that can be, derived from that type of operation. But as that one individual in the comments points out, yes, I understand. Right, this is very hypothetical sounding. This sounds amazing. It does. It sounds amazing because it is amazing. But, right, it seems as if, though, the shareholder base is very restive. There's a desire for results that are tangible, measurable, that one can say, okay, you know what? We are being led to the promised land. And look, we're seeing these milestones. We're passing these milestones. And again, to the company's credit, I think we are hitting many of these milestones, albeit at a somewhat delayed rate. Again, I hate getting into a position where it seems like I'm making excuses for a company, but to be fair, there was a lot going on in the middle of last year as it relates to Riot's attempt to acquire Bitfarms. By Ben's words, and I'm paraphrasing, that kind of interfered with the process of getting certain minor financing issues straightened out. Again, I'll link to these interviews in the description to today's broadcast. Bottom line, and this is how we're going to end today's broadcast. Listen, got to make a decision. Do we collectively believe Bitcoin doubles to $200,000 a coin? If the answer is no, well then, okay, where does it get to? 150? Does it mean Bitcoin's up 50% this year? Whatever number you want to assign to Bitcoin's potential performance this year. To use the standard and criteria that Ben articulated in the interview that aired yesterday, the role then of a publicly traded Bitcoin mining company is to surpass whatever return Bitcoin by itself would produce. Not just Bitfarms, be it Mara, Riot, CleanSpark, and as we said, hey, there are a couple of them already that are doing that amongst the bellwethers, right? And there may be others, but again, I just focused the quick analysis on some of the more bellwether names that we're all familiar with. Does Bitfarms get there? Right? And what will it take for Bitfarms to get there? And is Ben going into the open market buying shares of Bitfarms as he articulated he's doing? Is that something that's going to pay off for Ben? And by extension, for those who are investing currently in Bitfarms in hopes of seeing a pretty good return, does that pay off for you? Okay. It's heavy stuff because there's an opportunity cost here, right? To putting your money into a publicly traded Bitcoin mining company versus, for example, a publicly traded ETF or a call option that trades on top of that ETF, which can kind of give you an even more leveraged position, right? These are all very consequential decisions, but let's work through them together. Okay, let's try to figure out what makes the most sense. I am genuinely curious to hear what your thoughts are in terms of where Bitcoin goes this year. What are you reading? What are you hearing? Because remember, whatever you're reading or hearing, I'm only one individual, right? I'm not like reading 100,000 different things on the internet. But if you're seeing or hearing things that may be useful or relevant to our conversation, then share it. because I do check these things out, and I think it helps inform our collective conscience as to what the path ahead may be, recognizing, of course, that none of us have a crystal ball and that we are all on this journey together. Okay, my friend, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.